Well, time for a little dino juice, a little 91 octane, 100% gasoline. Stopping here at Weigel's. Nice convenient place and a good jumping off place for a lot of different rides. So off. Welcome YouTubers, nice to have you along. It's a beautiful day. It's not real hot, it's 70-ish. And I'm looking forward to a great ride. The sun isn't real bright today, which is kind of nice. No glare. Sunglasses are almost optional. But anyway, it's going to be really, really fun getting out there. Got a question for some of you. I've used different grades of fuel. I've used the 10% ethanol, grade 93, and the 100% gasoline, which is 91 octane. According to the manual, 91 octane is just fine, and the bike seems to perform well with that. Very recently, what was that big black bird that flew in front of my face? Must have been my glove. Anyway, I had never actually done a gas mileage check on the Spyder. I don't know. When I first purchased it, the guy that was selling it, or actually the guy that was doing the paperwork, said, oh, probably about 50 miles to the gallon, and he checked with one of the other salesmen, and he said, no sir, more like 35, and I guess that's more typical. But my reading was 40.5, pretty good. So anyway, here we are bolting down the road. Very overcast today. Picture looks a little bit dark. There's the beautiful Smoky Mountains off to the right. Great place to live here in East Tennessee if you like mountain views, and especially if you like hiking. Had kind of a sad thing happen back on May 5th. I lost my brother-in-law, my sweet bride's eldest brother. He was 86, and he had been declining fairly rapidly. He lived in Florida. He had lost his wife some time back, and I think that was kind of a separation that was really hard on him. They were married in 1956, so that's a pretty long life of two people living together, I think. It's kind of funny. They went to a college that had, I think it was Ohio Wesleyan, that had compulsory chapel services back in the day when that was the thing to do. And his name was Lehman, her name was Legier, so as luck would have it, they wound up sitting right next to each other in the chapel service. So the people were seated in order by alphabetical sequence. And that's a relationship that started and went all the way through college, all the way through different careers and retirement, and finally winding up in Tellico Village. And they were one of the reasons we moved to this part of the country. A little shout out to Great Rides, who said something about winter coming back to part of Ohio he lives in, and that someday he'd like to move south. Well, let me tell you, friend, that's a good idea. Tennessee is a terrific state to live in because they don't have any state income tax. They do have a rather high food tax. In our county, it's like 9%. Now, that doesn't include medications or anything like that, but they got to make up for it somehow. Also, the fact that registration costs for your vehicles is really low. I just renewed the tag on my Spyder, and it was like $24. And that was including the service charges for doing it online. That ain't bad. We don't have wheel taxes. We don't have smog inspections. I'm not so sure I agree with the last thing, but anyway, it certainly makes living here very reasonable. And Tellico Village is unusual too, because it's in an unincorporated area. So consequently, our property taxes are about half what they would be in the incorporated parts of the state. Hate to say it, I want to make you angry with me, but last year our property tax was $1,504. That's not 15,000, that's 1,500. That's pretty darn good. I did some lookup on the house we used to live in Oak Park, Illinois. When we purchased the house, property taxes were 23,000, rough numbers. And when we left in 2002, right before we moved here, they had gone up to 4,400. Just for the fun of it, not too long ago I looked the house up on Zillow, and the value of the house really hadn't gone up very much from when we sold it, because we were in a really high period of real estate sales, and then it kind of fell back a bit. If it did catch up, it didn't exceed that cost by much. But what was really bad was the property taxes on that little 3-bedroom split-level house of about 1,600 square feet was $10,000. That's Cook County taxes. Man, I guess you can understand why we didn't want to retire there. I'm sure they would have crept up some from the 4,400, but not like that. Taxes are based in part upon the last sale price. Oh well, lucky us. Another good reason to stay in Tennessee. As far as gasoline grades go, I really don't detect any difference in the performance between running 93 and 91 octane. I don't know what most of you use. Sometimes it's whatever's available. I know when we had the gas shortage here due to the break in the pipeline, some stations only would have high-test gas because most cars use regular grade gasoline. But anyway, that seems to be over. And I was going to go out on cops patrol this morning. That's the Citizens Observer Patrol, something I do in the village here as a civic duty, responsibility, whatever kind of thing. And my garage door wouldn't open. I couldn't figure it out. So I released it. It would go up maybe a foot, and I released the catch that hooks it up to the door opener, and still it wouldn't go past that amount. And I kind of scurrying around trying to figure out what to do, because it was drawing close to the time when I was going to go out on patrol, and there didn't seem to be any resolution to it. So instead, I had to call in and move my date up a day, and hopefully get somebody in to repair it. I called the door service, the one that actually has its sticker on the garage doors that did the original installation, and it was too early for anybody to be there. The office wasn't open, and the operator, the answering service, took my name and number. Well, it got to be 8:15, 8:20, thereabouts, and I hadn't heard from them, so I called again. So they told me that, well, I've looked over my schedule, and it looks like we can't get anybody out to see you before Thursday. And like, this is Tuesday? What, we're going to be stranded in our home for 2 days? That can't be right. Maybe I should start thinking about putting one car in the garage with a small door, and the other car in the garage with a big door, and putting the Spyder in the middle. That way I'll always have at least access to one car. Possible solution. I don't know how easily the little car will fit in there. Might be worth a try. That way, at least, if the door springs don't break, and hopefully it wouldn't happen to both doors on the same day, or ever for that matter, again, at least I'll be able to get one car out. It's kind of bad here because it's hard to do anything without an automobile. I mean, there's no bus service or anything like that out here, so I guess in the worst case scenario I could do a little quick shopping with the Spyder and put a few small items in the frunk, but that would have to be truly an emergency. I can't imagine doing any heavy duty shopping having only the Spyder to work with. I asked the person at the door company when they couldn't provide anybody before Thursday, like 2 days from now, if they wouldn't mind giving me recommendation for somebody else that could come. And I said, I know you're not in the business of recommending your competitors, but I'm kind of in a jam here. And she said, well, I'll call you back in a few minutes. So she called back and said, we have somebody that's going to come out and help you out after lunch today. Somebody that lives not too far from where you live. Hopefully it'll be somebody of good quality. I'll have to part with $343 for the replacement of the 2 springs, because they don't do just one. And that makes sense, because if one let go, chances are the other one doesn't have a long lifespan ahead of it either. Don't you think? The more ambitious of you might say, well, why don't you just buy the springs and do it yourself? Because all you really need is probably a screwdriver or a hand ratchet and the springs themselves and a couple of rods. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these springs being compressed before, but basically they have 2 rods that you forward one of them a certain amount, and you stick the other rod in that holds it while you reposition the rod to move it to the next tightness position. And it probably takes 5 minutes to do that. And you do that in each one of the springs, and you tighten it up, and everything else as well, and you should be good to go. Well, those springs are not for the faint of heart, or the questionably not so strong of body. And if one of those rods goes flying, goodness knows what damage it can do to anything it hits, like my cars, which are right in line with where they would go flying. But anyhow, wish me luck with this. It's been a lot of fun living here, and almost 20 years is a pretty good lifespan for a set of springs. I had it happen twice in the house I lived in previously in Illinois, and one time it was because they didn't use good quality springs and they only lasted about a year. So I raised that question. They said, oh, well, we'll use some special long life springs. So why didn't you use those in the first place? You just never know. Well, anyhow, I bored you for long enough. Have a great day. Get out there and ride if you can. And enjoy life. Life's worth living. Speedster Johnny, out.